Hello, hello, how are you? Good to see that my microphone's working. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be, but it is. Yay! Where are we up to? We're nearly at the end of the book. We've got... Hang on, I just unlocked the iPad. No, that's not fancy. It's an old first generation iPad mini. They're not worth anything. But it's a hand-me-down and it works. We are up to chapter 10. And there's 2 more chapters after this. Sorry, I know my line of sight is not quite looking right, but that doesn't really matter. Try and get back to the chapter. And it's 32 pages, so it's another one of our long ones. This author likes long chapters. There you go. Anyway, so how have you been? What have you been up to? Anything in particular? Tips? Anything exciting? I'm just got to look for something up on the other computer, sorry. I'm nearly there. Yes, it was another thing that I thought I had already set up, but... Oh dear. So I'm just nearly there. Right. And I'm hoping that the connection will be stable enough and that we won't have any problems with... yes, it's finally picked up. It was saying that my connection was not stable. It was unstable, if anything, but now it's saying that it is stable. Yay. We'll see what it's like when my other household members get back online. I'm not too sure how that's going to be, but we'll go with it. And we'll see what happens, shall we? Just need to copy a bit of information and type it somewhere else. Actually, paste it somewhere else, but that's okay. And here we go. Right. For those of you who are new here, hi, I'm Jev. I read old-fashioned children's books because why not? They're actually really great for helping us to see the world a little bit differently to what is currently going on around us. And that's not a bad thing in this day and age of the world falling apart around our ears. It's like, give me a little bit of escapism. And this gives us a little bit of escapism because it takes us to an imaginary world that was written about in 2003, 2004. This book was published in 1903 to 1904. This book was published in 1904. And it was a sequel to the previous one, which was called 5 Children and It. This book is about the 4 children, the 4 older children of that book. The youngest child, their youngest sibling, their brother, is away with mother, I think. And so these are their adventures when they're at home and their parents are away. It's not the Bastable Children, because that's the first series that we read by this author. This is another series, and the 3rd book in the series is called The Amulet. This one's The Phoenix in the Carpet, and the first one was 5 Children... Oh, sorry, hiccups. 5 Children and It, and the It in the title was The Samiad. This series is sometimes referred to as the Samiad series. The Samiad was a sand fairy, Samiad being the technical term for sand fairy. I don't know. That's just what it was. Anyway, so how about we start reading? I would like to know, no, I don't need to know. I would like to suggest that you have water to drink to keep yourself hydrated and something to snack on, which I don't have handy, but that's okay because I've got coffee instead. Yes, I am still drinking my coffee. Just in case you're wondering, that's real. And also somewhere comfortable to sit. And if you are working or studying and comfortable to sit is not the right phrase for you, that's okay. You can be the exception to the rule, because this is a lurk-friendly stream. In fact, when you're having a story read to you, generally it's kind of like you're lurking anyway. And if you want me to know that you're here and listening, but not engaging in chat specifically, and you don't mind other people knowing that you are, then you're welcome to put lurk in the chat box, and then the chat box will tell everybody, I suppose, what lurking's about. I can't remember what the phrasing was that I put on it. I should remember. It's written down somewhere, but not right in front of me at the moment. That's yet another thing I would have to dig for the information. So to how to put a lurk command in the chat box, you type lurk, ! LURK, no spaces, no capitals, and then it will reply with a response, and it's basically just thanking you for being here and listening, even if you aren't actually chatting. And chatting isn't really as key to what we do here in my stream space, but that's okay. And if you're listening to all of this nattering on over on YouTube, because this video will eventually end up on YouTube, then none of that means anything to you whatsoever, because by default you are lurking because you're watching a recorded video instead of watching this live. If you want to ever catch me reading live as a regular thing, then follow my link that's in my profile for my Twitch channel. And if you sign up there for free, which is like signing up for YouTube, then the system, and then follow me, which is clicking on the heart button that's below my header picture, then Twitch will actually tell you when I go live, so that you can have a listen next time I'm reading. Because I read 3 days a week, and I'm in New Zealand, so it's New Zealand time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. through to around 4-ish, sometimes before, sometimes after, sometimes half an hour after I will read till. So there you go, an hour to an hour and a half of me chatting with you and story time. And they, like I say, they're children's books. Now, they do come from a different era, from a different mind space, a different head space to what we currently live in. And so things that were considered okay then aren't necessarily considered okay now. Things that are considered okay now would not have been even dreamed of or considered okay then. And that's part of the benefits of listening to an old story, is because it expands our view of the world and how it functions. So how about we get on with reading the story instead of chatting? That's a good idea, isn't it? Right, I'll carry on reading. Carrying on, because this is what we do here. Right, The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit, that's Edith Nesbit, and we are reading Chapter 10, The Hole in the Carpet. And if you're new here, this is a wishing carpet. It has 3 wishes available for the children per day. And apparently it's getting a little bit damaged by some of the situations that it gets into, whether it's by its own choice, such as bringing the cats, or whether it's by the children's choices, such as returning a cow to where the cow had come from, that the carpet had picked it up, and the fact that one of the corners got torn. And so the girls have made an attempt at darning it, that's mending it with just normal darning wool, probably not to the same effect as if they had used magic carpet wool, and I don't know where you'd get that. So how about we read and find out about this hole in the carpet? Hooray, 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 Mother comes home today. Mother comes home today, hooray, hooray, hooray. Jane sang the simple song directly after breakfast, and the Phoenix shed crystal tears of affectionate sympathy. Oh, that sounds lovely. How beautiful, it said, is filial devotion. She won't be home till past bedtime, though, said Robert. We might have one more carpet day. He was glad that Mother was coming home. Quite glad. Very glad. But at the same time, that gladness was rudely contradicted by a quite strong feeling of sorrow, because now they could not go out all day on the carpet. Currently, the children are at home the older children, which is these four, are at home, and the only other people in the house are the cook and the maid, who get on with their jobs, and as long as the children aren't getting into trouble, they don't really have quite so much to do with them as, say, mother would, and she would want to make sure that they are doing certain things that they ought to do and all that sort of stuff. So we'll carry on. I do wish we could go and get something nice for Mother, only she'd want to know where we got it, said Anthea, and she'd never believe it. The truth. People never do somehow, if it's at all interesting. I'll tell you what, said Robert. Suppose we wished the carpet to take us somewhere where we could find a purse with money in it. Then we could buy her something. Suppose it took us somewhere foreign and the purse was covered in strange Eastern devices, embroidered in rich silks and full of money that wasn't money at all here, only foreign curiosities. Then we couldn't spend it, and people would bother about where we got it, and we shouldn't know how on earth to get out of it at all. This sounds like somebody's learning from this, because that sort of thing has happened to them, not specifically money, but something where their own context is a little bit different to what it is for the carpet. Cyril moved the table off the carpet as he spoke, and its leg caught in one of Anthea's darns and ripped away most of it, as well as a large slit in the carpet. Oh no, this is quite a large bit of damage. Well, now you have done it, said Robert, but Anthea was a really first-class sister. She did not say a word till she had got out the Scotch heather mixture, fingering wool, that's what it's called, the mending wool, and the darning needle, and the thimble, and the scissors, and by that time she had been able to get the better of her natural wish to be thoroughly disagreeable, and was able to say quite kindly, "Never mind, Squirrel, I'll soon mend it." Squirrel is the family nickname for Cyril. Cyril thumped her on the back. He understood exactly how she had felt, and he was not an ungrateful brother. Respecting the purse containing coins, the phoenix said, scratching its invisible ear thoughtfully with its shining claw, it might be as well perhaps to state clearly the amount which you wish to find, as well as the country where you wish to find it, and the nature of the coins which you prefer. It would be indeed a cold moment when you should find a purse containing but 3 oboloi. How much is an oboloi? An obol is about 2pence halfpenny, the phoenix replied. Yes, said Jane, and if you find a purse, I suppose it is only because someone has lost it, and you ought to take it to the policeman. Jane's the youngest of these four. The situation, remarked the phoenix, does indeed bristle with difficulties. What about a buried treasure, said Cyril, and everyone was dead that it belonged to? Mother wouldn't believe that, said more than one voice. Suppose, said Robert, suppose we asked to be taken where we could find a purse and give it back to the person it belonged to, and they would give us something for finding it. We aren't allowed to take money from strangers, you know we aren't, Bobs, said Anthea, making a knot at the end of a needle full of Scotch heather mixture fingering wool, which is very wrong, and you must never do it when you are darning. You don't put knots at the end of your threads when you're darning. You leave them unknotted so that the pieces of thread weave together better, and don't leave lumps that are going to be uncomfortable under your heel or toe. No, that wouldn't do, said Cyril. Let's chuck it and go to the North Pole or somewhere really interesting. No, said the girls together. There must be some way. Wait a sec, Anthea added. I've got an idea coming. Don't speak. There was a silence as she paused with the darning needle in the air. Suddenly she spoke. I see. Let's tell the carpet to take us somewhere where we can get the money for Mother's present and get it some way that she'll believe in and not think wrong. Well, I must say you are learning the way to get the most out of the carpet, said Cyril. Sorry, I've got an itchy eyelid here. He spoke most heartily and kindly, more heartily and kindly than usual, because he remembered how Anthea had refrained from snarking him about tearing the carpet. Yes, said the phoenix, you certainly are, and you have to remember that if you take a thing out It doesn't stay in. No one paid any attention to this remark at the time, but afterwards everyone thought of it. Ooh, there's a little bit of anticipation for you. No, I don't need to read that again. Do hurry up, Panther, said Robert. That's her nickname. And that was why Anthea did hurry up, and why the big darn in the middle of the carpet was all open and webby like a fishing net, not tight and close like woven cloth, which is what a good, well-behaved darn should be. Then everyone put on its outdoor things. The phoenix fluttered onto the mantelpiece and arranged its golden feathers in the glass. It's in the mirror. And all was ready. Everyone got onto the carpet. Please go slowly, dear carpet, Anthea began. We like to see where we're going. And then she added the difficult wish that had been decided on. Next moment, the carpet, stiff and raft-like, was sailing over the roofs of Kentish Town, which is the area that they live in or next to it. No, I don't mean that. I mean, it's a pity we aren't higher up, said Anthea, as the edge of the carpet grazed a chimney pot. That's right. Be careful, said the phoenix, in warning tones. If you wish when you're on a wishing carpet, you do wish, and there's an end of it. So, for a short time, no one spoke, and the carpet sailed on in calm magnificence over St. Pancras and King's Cross stations, and over the crowded streets of Clerkenwell. We're going out Greenwich way, said Cyril, as they crossed the streak of rough, tumbled water that was the Thames. We might go and have a look at the palace. On and on the carpet swept, still keeping much nearer to the chimney pots than the children found at all comfortable. And then just over New Cross, a terrible thing happened. Jane and Robert were in the middle of the carpet. Part of them was on the carpet, and part of them, the heaviest part, was on the great central darn. It's all very misty, said Jane. It looks partly like out of doors and partly like in the nursery at home. I feel as if I was going to have measles. Everything looking awfully rum then, remember? Looked awfully rum then, remember? Rum being a nickname for not good, unwell, unpleasant, that sort of thing. Sorry. I feel just exactly the same, Robert said. Oh, remember when the curate came to the tropical seaside to marry the cook and the ex-burglar? He could see his study as well as where he was, and he thought it was all imaginary, that he was having an hallucination. And that was because he was standing half on the darn and half on the carpet. And I think the children might have just discovered the same thing. It is the whole, said the phoenix. It is not measles, whatever that possession may be. And at that, both Robert and Jane suddenly and at once made a bound to try and get onto the safer part of the carpet. And the darn gave way, and their boots went up, and the heavy heads and bodies of them went down through the hole, and they landed in a position something between sitting and sprawling on the flat leads on the top of a high, grey, gloomy, respectable house whose address was 705 Amersham Road, New Cross. Now, you can look that up on the map. Is that a real place? 705 Amersham Road, Amersham, New Cross, London. Now, there may be an Amersham Road, but there may not be a 705. You can have a look and then tell us what you found in the chat box. Go on. You do that while I carry on reading. The carpet seemed to awaken to new energy as soon as it had got rid of their weight, and it rose high in the air. The others lay down flat and peeped over the edge of the rising carpet. Are you hurt? Cried Cyril. And Robert shouted, No! And the next moment the carpet had sped away, and Jane and Robert were hidden from the sight of the others by a stack of smoky chimneys. There's the carpet, there's the other two on top of it, and there's the two that have fallen off. So that's Cyril and Jane, and there's Anthea and Robert. There you go. Oh my goodness, how are they going to get back home? How are they going to get down off the roof? Most people don't have an unlocked door on their roof to be able to get inside the house. Let's hope there's some windows and someone has left the window open because they thought that nobody would arrive on their roof. And so therefore they are not stuck on the roof. We'll find out. We'll carry on reading. Don't panic. We're getting there. Oh, how awful, said Anthea. It might have been worse, said the Phoenix. What would have been the sentiments of the survivors if that darn had given away when we were crossing the river? Yes, there's that, said Cyril, recovering himself. They're all right. Sorry, it's Anthea and Cyril on the carpet. That means it's Robert and Jane on the roof. Now, Robert and Jane are the younger two of these four. Yes, there's that, said Cyril, recovering himself. They'll be all right. They'll howl till someone gets them down, or drop tiles into the front garden to attract attention of passers-by. Bobs has got my 1 and 5p. Lucky you forgot to mend that hole in my pocket, Panther, or he wouldn't have had it. They can tram it home. So because he's got some money in his pocket because it fell out of the hole in Cyril's pocket and Robert had picked it up, they'll be able to catch a tram home, because it's going to be quite a long walk, I think, otherwise. But Anthea would not be comforted. It's all my fault, she said. I knew the proper way to down and I didn't do it. It's all my fault. Let's go home and patch the carpet with your Eatons, something really strong, and send it to fetch them. All right, said Cyril, but your Sunday jacket is stronger than my Eatons. We must just chuck Mother's present, that's all. I wish— Stop! Cried the Phoenix. The carpet is dropping to earth. And indeed it was. It sank swiftly, yet steadily, and landed on the pavement of the Deptford Road. It tipped a little as it landed, so that Cyril and Anthea naturally walked off it, and in an instant it had rolled itself up and hidden behind a gatepost. It did this so quickly that not a single person in the Deptford Road— you can look that one up too, that will be in London, Deptford as one word. No, not a single person in the Deptford Road noticed it. The Phoenix rustled its way into the breast of Cyril's coat, because it knows that it needs to stay hidden. And almost at the same moment, a well-known voice remarked, "Well, I never! What on earth are you doing here?" They were face to face with their pet uncle, their Uncle Reginald. How did the carpet know? We did think of going to Greenwich Palace and talking about Nelson, said Cyril, telling as much of the truth as he thought his uncle could believe. And where are the others? Asked Uncle Reginald. I don't exactly know, said Cyril, this time quite truthfully. Well, said Uncle Reginald, I must fly. I've a case in the county court. That's the worst of being a beastly solicitor. One can't take the chances of life when one gets them. If only I could come with you to the Painted Hall and give you lunch at the ship afterwards. But alas, it may not be. The uncle felt in his pocket. I mustn't enjoy myself, he said, but that's no reason why you shouldn't. Here, divide this by 4 and the product ought to give you some desired result. Take care of yourselves. Adieu. And waving a cheery farewell with his neat umbrella, the good and high-hatted uncle passed away, carried on walking, not dying on the footpath, leaving Cyril and Anthea to exchange eloquent glances over the shining gold sovereign that lay in Cyril's hand. Not even a half sovereign. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt this and look it up. Oh my goodness, a sovereign, a whole gold sovereign. And yes, I am looking on my other monitor. I just need to get my keyboard where I can reach it properly. I think they were called a gold sovereign because they were made of gold, obviously. And sovereign is because it had a picture of whoever the current royal person is on it. I mean, I know the other coins do too, but I suppose because it has such a high value, because it's gold, that meant that it was kind of treated like royalty, but I don't know if that's the case. Sovereign, British coin. The sovereign is a gold coin of the United Kingdom that has a nominal value of £1 sterling. Struck since 1817, that means made since 1817, it was originally a circulating coin, that means one that was used as a normal coin, that was accepted in Britain and elsewhere in the world. It is now a bullion coin. Now, a bullion coin, I will tell you, means that it is a coin struck from refined precious metal and kept as a store of value or an investment, rather than used in day-to-day currency. There you go. Sometimes mounted in jewellery. In addition, circulation strikes and proof examples are often collected for the numismatic value. That means coin collectors. Numismatic is the collecting of coins. There you go. In most recent years, it has borne the design of St. George and the Dragon on the reverse. The initials BP of the designer, Benedetto Pastrucci, are visible on the right of the date. The coin was named after the English gold sovereign, which was last minted about 1603 and originated as part of the Great Recoinage of 1816. Many in Parliament believed a £1 coin should be issued rather than the 21-shilling guinea that was struck until that time. So I'm thinking that a guinea and a sovereign at the time possibly had a similar value, monetary value to each other. Because I'm not sure how many shillings are in a guinea. The guinea was a coin minted in Great Britain between 1663 and 1814. It contained approximately 1/4 of an ounce of gold. Its value, I think, was purely because it was made from gold. The name came from the Guinea region in Western Africa, from where much of the gold used to make the coins was sourced. So that's a guinea. Originally, the coin was unpopular because the public preferred the convenience of banknotes, but paper currency of value of £1 was soon limited by law, probably because they were fairly easily forged paper notes. They were nowhere near as complicated as they are now. And also, if I remember rightly, if you had paper money in your pockets and it went through the wash, that was goodbye to the value because it just came out as paper pulp afterwards. Have you ever left a tissue in your pocket from blowing your nose or because you were wiping your fingers on something? And it gets all smushed up in the corner of the pocket and it's just this lump of paper pulp. Yeah, not nice if you have money of value in your pocket and that's what happens to it, because suddenly you have no value. You can't claim it back. And that's partly why they changed what money was made out of. So they make it out of, for a long time they continued to make it out of paper, but it was a specialty paper that wouldn't break down when it went through the wash. I'm not sure if it was rag paper or something else. I'm just looking. The value was soon limited by law. Oh, the value of £1 was soon limited by law. That's the paper £1 note. With the competition for that gone, the sovereign became a popular circulating coin and was used in international trade and overseas, being trusted as a coin containing a known quantity of gold. So I'm just going to reach down and find something to show you. Sorry, I'm holding my finger up, but you couldn't see it because I didn't have it up far enough. I will show you what a New Zealand $1 coin looks like, which is kind of a modern equivalent, although the value of it, what you could purchase with it, a sovereign was worth so much more than what our $1 coins are. You could buy so many things with it. Let's see if I can find one. Yes, I can find one. So this is a New Zealand $1 coin. I'm just wondering if I can get it so it will focus on my camera. I think doesn't autofocus. That's a kiwi bird standing on it. Now this is a New Zealand $2 coin. That is a kotuku, which is a particular type of bird with long legs and big wings. And so these two coins, I don't know about Australia now, but it used to be that the Australians had their ones that were similar value. Well, their version of that value, $1 and $2 coins. Their size was the opposite way around. So the Australian ones, this would have been the $2 coin, and this would have been the $1 coin. I don't know why. That certainly doesn't make sense to me. And so on the back of the New Zealand ones, we have our current sovereign, reigning royalty person. So that is Queen Elizabeth II. Yes, I didn't line them up as well as I did for the first one. So there you go. And the colour on them is meant to be reminiscent of gold. It's got no gold in it whatsoever as far as I know. And it's got a lot of other metals in it because gold is very soft and it wears out very easily, and so therefore they wouldn't last very long when you're using them regularly and they're rattling against other coins. So there you go. They may have been bigger than those, the sort of coins they were using, the one that they're referring to here as a gold sovereign. The children would have much more likely normally have been given a half sovereign, which is worth half that value. So that would be worth however many shillings, but definitely not the sort of currency that they would normally be given. We'll carry on reading and find out what they do with this gold sovereign. But I just thought it was interesting to find out about it for you. Waving a cheery farewell with his neat umbrella, the good and high-hatted uncle passed on, carried on down the road, not the euphemism passed away dying, leaving Cyril and Anthea to exchange eloquent glances over the shining golden sovereign that lay in Cyril's hand. "Well," said Anthea. "Well," said Cyril. "Well," said the phoenix. "Good old carpet," said Cyril joyously. "It was clever of it, so adequate and yet so simple," was the phoenix. "With calm approval," said the phoenix. "Oh, come on home and let's mend the carpet. I am a beast. I'd forgotten the others just for a minute," said the conscience-stricken Anthea. They unrolled the carpet quickly and slyly. They did not want to attract public attention, and the moment their feet were on the carpet, Anthea wished to be at home, and instantly they were. The kindness of their excellent uncle had made it unnecessary for them to go to such extremes as Cyril's Eton's or Anthea's Sunday jacket for the patching of the carpet. Eton's. I'm not sure if his Etons are his trousers or his jacket, but part of what would be a dress outfit for special occasions or, depending on what school you went to, for school. Eton School had a rather fancy school uniform of particular type of trousers and a particular type of jacket and a particular type of hat. Rather a fancy school, and I think that's where the nickname for this item of clothing has come from. You can look it up, Eton's, and you can tell us what it's about. Anthea set to work at once to draw the edges of the broken darn together, and Cyril hastily went out and bought a large piece of the marble-patterned American oilcloth which careful housewives used to cover dressers, and kitchen tables. It was the strongest thing he could think of. Oilcloth is like a type of strong cotton, woven cotton, such as canvas or drill or any of those other fabrics. And then it actually has a waxy mineral oil, I think it is, that is soaked into it, which helps to actually strengthen the cloth and causes it to be somewhat waterproof. So it used to be sometimes used on a work table so that if you spilt things on it, you didn't have it soaking into the wood and ruining the timber. And it was also used for making oilskins, coats and hats and things like that to keep the rain out. So that's what oilcloth kind of is. Then they set to work to line the carpet throughout with the oilcloth. The nursery felt very odd and empty without the others, and Cyril did not feel so sure as he had done about their being able to tram it home, so he tried to help Anthea, which was very good of him, but not much use to her. The phoenix watched them for a time, but it was plainly growing more and more restless. It fluffed up its splendid feathers and stood first on one gilded claw and then on the other, and at last it said, "I can bear it no longer, this suspense. My Robert, who set my egg to hatch, in the bosom of whose Norfolk raiment I have nestled so often and so pleasantly, I think, if you'll excuse me, Norfolk jacket." "Yes, do," cried Anthea. "I wish we'd thought of asking you before." Cyril opened the window. The phoenix flapped its sun-bright wings and vanished. "So that's all right," said Cyril, taking up his needle and instantly pricking his hand in a new place, because he hasn't had a lot of experience sewing, because the little boys at that stage didn't get taught to sew, only girls. "Of course, I know that is what you really wanted to know about all this time, is not what Anthea and Cyril did, but what happened to Jane and Robert after they fell through the carpet onto the leads of the house which was called number 705 Amersham Road." That was the author saying that to us. "But I had to tell you the others first. That is one of the most annoying things about stories. You cannot tell all the different parts of them at the same time. Robert's first remark when he found himself seated on the damp, cold, sooty leads, and they're called the leads because it's a section of the roof of houses that is made with lead, the metal lead, thin and flat. It can be shaped because it's a soft metal, so it's used on a flat roof, and then they take it up at the edges so it meets up with the brickwork, and then fasten the top edge of it into between some bricks so that when the rain falls down, you don't get rain through that flat part of the roof. It was also used for what they call flashing, which is where you put it when you have a section of roof that comes down at this angle and a section of roof that comes down, when you have a section of roof that comes down at this angle and one that comes down at this angle, where the two come together in that middle bit, you need to stop the rain getting through between the edges of where the tiles are, because they can't overlap when they're in a corner like that, and so the rain can get through the roof, and then it rots the timber of the roof framing, and then your roof falls down, and what's the point in having a house? So lead is used underneath that strip, that angled strip in the valley of the roof, to catch the rain and stop it going further through the building, and then runs it right down onto either the leads, the flat bit, or into a guttering, which to take the roof rain away from the house. So that was common. We use other metals now, but that was what they used because it was very easy to shape it and to get it so it fits around things and still keeps the water out. Because of its softness, it can be hammered and pushed and pulled and poked and cut and all sorts of things. So, but that's also what became the name of a flat part of the roof that needed that metal to seal it from the rain. Robert's first remark when he found himself seated on the damp, sooty, cold leads was, "Here's a go." Jane's first act was tears. "Dry up, pussy. Don't be a little duffer," said her brother kindly. It'll all be right. It'll be all right." So Puss was her nickname. She's the youngest. And then he looked about, just as Cyril had known he would, for something to throw down, so as to attract the attention of the wayfarers far below in the street. He could not find anything. Curiously enough, there were no stones on the leads, not even a loose tile. The roof was of slate, and every single slate knew its place and kept it. So it's been roofed well. But as so often happens, in looking for one thing, he found another. There was a trapdoor leading down into the house, and that trapdoor was not fastened. "Stop snivelling and come here, Jane," he cried encouragingly. "Lend a hand to heave this up. If we can get into the house, we might sneak down without meeting anyone, with luck. Come on." They heaved up the door till it stood straight up, and as they bent to look into the hole below, the door fell back with a hollow clang onto the leads behind it. I'm guessing it's because they were young children that they didn't think to open the door up and then lower it down the other side. And with its noise was mingled a blood-curdling scream from underneath. "Discovered!" hissed Robert. "Oh, my cat's alive!" They were indeed discovered. They found themselves looking down into an attic, which was also a lumber room. A lumber room is another name for a storage attic or storage room. It had boxes and broken chairs, old fenders and picture frames and rag bags hanging from nails. In the middle of the floor was a box, open, half full of clothes. Other clothes lay on the floor in neat piles. In the middle of the piles of clothes sat a lady, very fat indeed, with her feet sticking out straight in front of her, and it was she who had screamed, and who, in fact, was still screaming. "Don't," cried Jane. "Please don't. We won't hurt you." "Where are the rest of your gang?" asked the lady, stopping short in the middle of a scream. "The others have gone on the wishing carpet," said Jane truthfully. "The wishing carpet?" said the lady. "Yes," said Jane, before Robert could say, "You shut up." "You might have read about it. The phoenix is with them." Jane is young enough that she doesn't necessarily stop to think about whether other people are going to believe her or whether it's appropriate to say something like that. Oh dear. I'm just about to see if there's another picture that we shall use. Nearly there. Not quite, but nearly. And I don't think I've got it ready for you, so I'll get it ready while I read. Well, I'll try to. Right, and carry on reading. Then the lady got up and picked her way carefully between the piles of clothes. And picking her way carefully between the piles of clothes, she got to the door and threw it. She shut it behind her, and the two children could hear her calling, "Septimus! Septimus!" in a loud yet frightened way. "Now," said Robert quickly, "I'll drop first." He hung by his hands and dropped through the trapdoor. And here's your picture. I am so pleased this book has illustrations and that I can share them with you. There you go. He hung by his hands and dropped through the trapdoor. "Now you, hang by your hands, I'll catch you." "Oh, there's no time for jaw. Drop, I say." Jane dropped. Robert tried to catch her, and even before they had finished the breathless roll among the piles of clothes, which was what his catching ended up in, he whispered, "We'll hide behind those fenders and things. They'll think we've gone along the roofs. Then when all is calm, we'll creep down the stairs and take our chance." I'll just turn that off for now and get the next one ready, and I'll keep on reading. Don't you worry about that. That will happen because there is more story happening. "We'll creep down the stairs and take our chance when all's calm." They hastily hid. A corner of an iron bedstead stuck into Robert's side, and Jane had only standing room for 1 foot, but they bore it. And when the lady came back, not with Septimus, but with another lady, they held their breath, and their hearts beat thickly. "Gone," said the first lady. "Poor little things, quite mad, my dear, and at large. We must lock this room and send for the police." So I'm guessing she's thinking, because she only saw them looking in through the trapdoor in the roof. "Let me look out," said the second lady, who was, if possible, older and thinner and primmer than the first. Thinner wouldn't be so hard. So the two ladies dragged a box under the trapdoor and put another box on the top of it, and then they both climbed up very carefully and put their two trim, tidy heads out of the trapdoor to look for the mad children. "Now," whispered Robert, getting the bedstead leg out of his side. They managed to creep out from their hiding place and out through the door before the two ladies had done looking out of the trapdoor onto the empty leads. Robert and Jane tiptoed down the stairs, 1 flight, 2 flights. Then they looked over the banisters. Horror! A servant was coming up with a loaded scuttle. That's a coal scuttle. The children, with one consent, crept swiftly through the first open door. The room was a study, calm and gentlemanly, with rows of books, a writing table, and a pair of embroidered slippers warming themselves in the fender. You know what that means? It means that someone is about to come into the room and use it. It is being got ready for them. The children hid behind the window curtains. As they passed the table, they saw on it a missionary box with its bottom label torn off, open and empty. A missionary box in this particular context is a donation box where you've been out, you've done your shopping, you want to help people in another place. You may not have a lot of money, but when you have a little bit of loose change, you put it in this little box, and then the box gets taken to your church, given to the vicar or the curate or whoever, and they will send it, that they will get in contact, they'll collect up a whole lot of them. The missionary organisation will then receive the money from all these little boxes. Now, usually the label stays on the bottom to show that they are still sealed and haven't had the money removed. This one has the box with its bottom label torn off. I wonder if there's something else happening here. And it was open and empty. "Oh, how awful," whispered Jane. "We shall never get away alive." "Hush," said Robert, not a moment too soon. For there were steps on the stairs, and next instant the two ladies came into the room. They did not see the children, but they saw the empty missionary box. "I knew it," said one. "Selina, it was a gang. I was certain of it from the first. The children were not mad. They were sent to distract our attention while their confederates robbed the house." "I'm afraid you are right," said Selina. "And where are they now?" "Downstairs, no doubt, collecting the silver milk jug and the sugar basin and the punch ladle that was Uncle Joe's and Aunt Jerusha's teaspoons. I shall go down." This is obviously a list of all their silverware, because that will be their valuable things. "Oh, don't be so rash and heroic," said Selina. "Amelia, we must call the police from the window. Lock the door." I will. The words ended in a yell as Selina, rushing to the window, came face to face with the hidden children. "Oh, don't," said Jane. "How can you be so unkind? We aren't burglars. And we haven't any gang, and we didn't open your missionary box. We opened our own one once, but we didn't have to use the money, so our consciences made us put it back. And don't. Oh, I wish you wouldn't." Miss Selina had seized Jane, and Miss Amelia captured Robert. The children found themselves held fast by strong, slim hands, pink at the wrists and white at the knuckles, holding on tight. "We've got you, at any rate," said Miss Amelia. "Selina, your captive is smaller than mine. You open the window at once and call murder as loud as you can." Selina obeyed, but when she had opened the window, instead of calling murder, she called Septimus, because at that very moment she saw her nephew coming in at the gate. In another minute he had let himself in with his latchkey and had mounted the stairs. As he came into the room, Jane and Robert each uttered a shriek of joy so loud and so sudden that the ladies leapt with surprise and nearly let them go. "It's our own clergyman," cried Jane. "Don't you remember us?" asked Robert. "You married our burglar for us. Don't you remember?" That's the guy who, in the last reading we had been seeing through two scenes because he was half on the carpet and half on a patch. That's their clergyman who married the cook and the burglar. "I knew it was a gang," said Amelia. "Septimus, these abandoned children are members of a desperate burgling gang who are robbing the house. They have already forced the missionary box and purloined its contents." Well, there's one quick way to find out if they did. Check their pockets. There they are. There's Amelia and Selina, and there's Robert and Jane, and there is Septimus. These abandoned children are members of a desperate gang. Sorry, it's a little hard to read because it's so small on my screen. Anyway, we'll carry on. The Reverend Septimus passed his hand wearily over his brow. I feel a little faint, he said, running upstairs so quickly. We never touched the beastly box, said Robert. Then your confederates did, said Miss Selina. No, no, said the curate hastily. I opened the box myself. This morning I found I had not enough small change for the Mother's Independent Unity, Measles and Croup insurance payments. I suppose this is not a dream, is it? Because the last time he saw the children he thought either he was hallucinating or he was dreaming. Dream? No, indeed. Search the house. I insist upon it. The curate, still pale and trembling, searched the house, which of course was blamelessly free of burglars. When he came back, he sank wearily into his chair. Aren't you going to let us go? Asked Robert, with furious indignation, for there is something in being held by a strong lady that sets the blood of a boy boiling in his veins with anger and despair. We've never done anything to you. It's all the carpet. It dropped us on the leads. We couldn't help it. You know how it carried you over to the island. And you had to marry the burglar to the cook. Oh, my head, said the curate. Never mind your head just now, said Robert. Try to be honest and honourable and do your duty at in that state of life. This is a judgment on me for something, I suppose, said the Reverend Septimus wearily, but I really cannot at the moment remember what. Send for the doctor, said Miss Selina. Send for the police, said Miss Selina. Send for a doctor, said the curate. Do you think they are mad then? Said Miss Amelia. I think I am, said the curate. Jane had been crying ever since her capture. Now she said, You aren't now, but perhaps you will be and it would serve you jolly well right, too. Aunt Selina, said the curate, and Aunt Amelia, believe me, this is only an insane dream. You will realise it soon. It has happened to me before, but do not let us be unjust even in a dream. Do not hold the children. They have done no harm. As I said before, it was I who opened the box. The strong, bony hands unwillingly loosened their grasp. Robert shook himself and stood in sulky resentment, but Jane ran to the curate and embraced him so suddenly that he had not time to defend himself. You are a dear, she said. It is like a dream just at first, but you get used to it. Now do let us go. There's a good, kind, honourable clergyman, said Jane. I don't know, said the Reverend Septimus. It is a difficult problem. It is such a very unusual dream. Perhaps it is only a sort of other life, quite real enough for you to be mad in. And if you're mad, there might be a dream asylum, where you'd be kindly treated and in time restored, cured, to your sorrowing relatives. It is very hard to see your duty plainly, even in ordinary life, and these dream circumstances are so complicated. If it's a dream, said Robert, you will wake up directly and then you'll be sorry you'd sent us into a dream asylum, because you might never get into the same dream again and let us out. That's not bad for logic. And so we might stay there forever. And then what about our sorrowing relatives who aren't in the dreams at all? But all the curate could now say was, Oh, my head. I think he would like to go to an asylum and have a rest break for a while. He's feeling a little overwhelmed. Yes. And Jane and Robert felt quite ill with helplessness and hopelessness. A really conscientious curate is a very difficult thing to manage. That means to direct him the way they want. And then, just as the hopelessness and the helplessness was getting to be almost more than they could bear, the two children suddenly felt that extraordinary sinking feeling that you always have when you are just going to vanish. And the next moment, they had vanished, and the Reverend Septimus was left alone with his aunts. "I knew it was a dream," he cried wildly. "I've had something like it before." "Did you dream it too, Aunt Selina? And you, Aunt Amelia?" "I dreamed that you did, you know." Aunt Selina looked at him and then at Aunt Amelia. Then she said boldly, "What do you mean? We haven't been dreaming anything. You must have dropped off in your chair." And the curate heaved a sigh of relief. "Oh, if it's only I," he said. "If we'd all dreamed it, I could never have believed it. Never." Afterwards, Aunt Selina said to the other aunt, "Yes, I know it was an untruth, and I shall doubtless be punished for it in due course, but I could see the poor dear fellow's brain giving way before my very eyes. He couldn't have stood the strain of 3 dreams. It was odd, wasn't it? All 3 of us dreaming the same thing at the same moment. We must never tell dear Seppi, but I shall send an account of it to the Psychical Society with stars instead of names, you know." A written account. And they did, and you can read about it. You can read all about it in one of the Society's fat blue books, where they keep their records of people's experiences of psychic phenomena. Of course, you understand what had happened. The intelligent phoenix had simply gone straight off to the Samiad, and he had wished Robert and Jane at home. And of course they were at home at once. Cyril and Anthea had not half finished mending the carpet. When the joyful emotions of reunion had calmed down a little, they all went out and spent what was left of Uncle Reginald's sovereign in presents for Mother. They bought her a pink silk handkerchief, a pair of blue and white vases, a bottle of scent, a packet of Christmas candles, and a cake of soap shaped and coloured like a tomato. A cake of soap shaped and coloured like a tomato. I'm guessing it's meant to be an apple, and it's a gentle novelty soap. But that one seems a little odd. I'll read that section again. A packet of Christmas candles. Why Christmas, I'm not sure. Oh, that's right. Hang on, it's winter. Yes. A cake of soap shaped and coloured like a tomato, and one that was so like an orange that almost any one of you I'm sorry, the grammar is a bit weird sometimes. So like an orange that almost any one of you had given it to would have tried to peel it. Anyone of you who had received it would have thought it was real and tried to peel it, if they liked oranges, of course. Also, they bought a cake with icing on it, and the rest of the money they spent on flowers to put in the vases. They're not the first children to have bought a pair of vases. That must have been something that was a done thing then for children. When they had arranged all the things on a table, with the candles stuck up on a plate, ready to light the moment Mother's cab was heard, they washed themselves thoroughly and put on tidier clothes. Then Robert said, "Good old Samiad," and the others said so too. "But really it's just as much good old Phoenix," said Robert. "Suppose it hadn't thought of getting the wish." "Ah," said the Phoenix, "it is perhaps fortunate for you that I am such a competent bird." "There's Mother's cab," cried Anthea, and the Phoenix hid, and they lighted the candles, and next moment Mother was home again. She liked her presents very much and found their story of Uncle Reginald and the sovereign easy and even pleasant to believe. "Good old carpet," were Cyril's last sleepy words. "What there is of it," said the Phoenix, from the Cornice Pole. That's the curtain pole that's by the cornice of the roof. the ceiling. The cornice is the moulding of around the roof. No, a cornice is the piece of shaped timber or plaster. Calling it a moulding doesn't mean anything to you because you're not a builder, most of you. The shaped piece of timber or plaster, timber also being another name for wood, that goes at the join between the ceiling, which is the inside roof in a house, the bit that you look up at, between the ceiling and the wall to cover that join. Some houses it's very fancy, some houses it's very plain, and some of them it's very, very small. So the cornice pole is a curtain pole that is fastened up at that level. So it's right up near the ceiling. So by being so high, because the houses at this time period had quite high ceilings, by being so high up and the phoenix perching up on this pole, he would be out of sight of most people, because most people, when they come into a room with high ceilings, don't look up at the ceiling, do they? So therefore he would be not noticed by most people. Anyway, I'll carry on reading. Good old carpet were Cyril's last sleepy words. What there is of it, said the phoenix from the cornice pole. And that's the end of the chapter. And we shan't read any more today because it is now after 4 o'clock and the next chapter is long enough that I don't think it would be a good idea for me to read it all, because it's going to be too late at the end of the day for me to actually Okay, I was just checking to see how many pages until we actually got to the end of the very last chapter, which we haven't quite got to yet. We've got another chapter before we get to that. Sorry. Yeah, I'd actually started tapping and I didn't want to lose count, and so I had... So we have 2 more chapters, the beginning of the end and the end of the end. And I was trying to see if it's going to be 2 days worth of reading or 1, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be 2 because the second one of those 2 chapters is a little longer than today's, even if the other one is shorter. So all of those new things we've learned about, did any of you look up that location? 706, was it? What was it? 706 something or other road. No, that's not how we do it. And we find the number of the street, and then it should be easier to see what the word is for the street name. This is the problem with actually having a digital book instead of 705, sorry. Amersham Road, New Cross. Having a digital book instead of a book with physical pages. A book with physical pages is actually very easy to scan through it, where you hold a bunch of pages in one hand and flick them like this, and they go and they flick past, and it's easier to get to the page that you want because you usually have a bit of an idea of how far you've got to go. So let's see maps, and we'll see if we can find Amersham Road first and see where New Cross is as well. New Cross, London is a real place. I should probably be doing it on that monitor so that if I do take a picture of it, you'll be able to see it. New Cross. New Cross is southeast of a place called Deptford, south of Rotherhithe. It's basically a little bit east and on the other side of the river from where the Tower of London and the City of London is. Let's see if we can find that street name. The street name is Amersham Road. There is an Amersham Road. There you go. I don't think we are going to have 705 because this Amersham Road is very small, very short. It runs from New Cross Road down to the A20. So as I said before, don't be surprised if the road is real, but the street number isn't. So there you go. It's a real street. I have no idea what the houses are like, and I would imagine they don't look anything like what they did for the children because at that time it was the Edwardian period, which is after the Victorian period, and I don't know how long ago those houses on that street would have been built, but even if they were Victorian ones, since then London went through the Second World War, which involved being bombed by the Germans. The Blitz, which was a way of the Germans trying to get the English so scared and worried that they would just give up and let Hitler have England as part of effectively his empire. Anyway, so a lot of London was affected by the Blitz, by the bombings, and been rebuilt. So we actually spent a few months living in London. Remember last time I was talking about living out in the country? Well, while we were in England, we had 4 years living in England. Most of that, almost all of that, was living out in the countryside. But we had the last couple of months, might have been a little bit more than that, living in London with some friends of ours who lived over there at the time, New Zealanders, in one of the suburban areas, probably similar sort of place once upon a time to where this is set. But it doesn't look anything like that because all of the buildings are ones that have been built after the Second World War. And I would guess that that's because that part of London had to be rebuilt because of the bombings during the Second World War. I don't think it was just new suburbs because of the expansion of the city. I think that part of London was a little bit too well established by that stage to have been just empty fields where they could subdivide it and create new housing. What else have we talked about today that was unusual that I had suggested looking up? I'm still looking. Crowded streets of Clerkenwell. Clerkenwell is another part of inner London. You can look it up if you want. Oh, that was quite funny, wasn't it? How the children were noticing that it was a little bit misty because of the fact that two of them were standing on the wrong part of the carpet. Now, where did I get to on the pictures? That was it. That was the children who had been supposedly part of a desperate gang. Oh dear. And it was so funny that it was actually their not curate, what did they call him? Curate something. I'm just trying to see if I can find what they called him again. Curate, he wasn't the vicar. And Jane said, yeah, it is the curate, sorry. The curate, still pale and trembling. So that means he worked at their local church. Or no, they thought of him as their curate because he's the one who was taken to go and marry their old cook to their old ex-burglar. That's what it was. That's why they called him their curate. Although it is possible that they would have referred, they didn't, I don't think he recognised them when he first met them, which is what makes me think he went to a different church to the one that they would have possibly gone to. And I say they would have possibly gone to because generally in those days, that particular sector of society, the middle class, attended church on Sundays. Especially children, they would go to children's church, Sunday school. The Americans use a term called Sunday school for kind of like a study group that's held on Sundays, and everybody goes to that. in New Zealand, we have Sunday school, but Sunday school is for children to do activities while the adults are sitting in church listening to someone preaching a sermon. This is in old traditional churches. If they have a children's church, it will be called Sunday school. It's just what it was. So in these children's era, they wouldn't have necessarily done that. If they're going to have any learning things at church, it was usually done, say, on a Saturday as a children's club at the church building organisation area. And on a Sunday, the children would have to just sit there very carefully and quietly and behave themselves. Best behaviour, best Sunday clothes, Sunday best. That's what that phrase comes from, is the clothes that you would wear to church. They are the ones that are always clean. They are the ones that are the newest looking of all of the clothes that you have. That's just the way it was. It's funny how many phrases come from things like that. I was thinking of that today when I posted my announcement that I was going to be reading today on Instagram, because I took a short video clip of our laundry, our washing, flapping on the clothesline in the wind, because it's quite windy outside at the moment. And my comment was that the best way to soften your laundry is not putting fabric softener in and not putting it through a dryer so it softens as it's being tumbled, is to actually have it on the clothesline flapping in the wind, because that will soften it just the way the tumble dryer will, without doing quite the same heat damage to it. But it was quite funny. And then I stopped and thought about airing our dirty laundry, the phrase. And I thought, and I'm thinking, this is really weird. Why would somebody hang dirty laundry out on a clothesline? You only hang clean laundry on a clothesline. But then I realised after I'd posted it that quite possibly the original saying comes from where people didn't do laundry as often as we do now, because they didn't have machinery that did it. And otherwise they would pay somebody to do it. And if you didn't have lots of money, you didn't get it done so often. And the general standard that most of society around you has is the one that most people comply with. So if at that stage in time people wash their clothing once a week, most people just wash their clothing once a week because that was the expectation. Everybody did it. It's not a big deal. Instead of wearing something once and then putting it in the wash, which we can do now easily. So airing your dirty laundry would be a way of possibly, this is just a theory, possibly laundry, not specifically stuff that's ready to be washed, but things that you want to freshen up a little to be able to use again before it needs to go in the wash. One of the ways of freshening it up a little so it just smells a bit fresher and cleaner is you put it out on like a drying green or a drying lawn, which is where you have an area of grass and low bushes, shrubs that catches a lot of sun, and it's not somewhere that's very public, and you put your items to dry. This is what they were originally used for, is that's where you dry your clothing. You spread it over the bushes and even on the grass, but it's easier if it's over the bushes, as well as hanging some things from the line. And they dry there, and they pick up the lovely fragrances of the fresh air and also the plants that they're on top of. So if you wanted to freshen up some clothing that was not suitable to be washed yet, but you wanted it to smell fresher, you could possibly put your clothing out on an airing green to actually freshen up by being on these bushes and also being in the sunshine and having this fresh air blowing past it. So maybe that's where airing one's dirty laundry as a phrase comes from, is because they actually did do it. You certainly wouldn't hang it on a clothesline. You do that once it's been washed. But maybe you would put it out on an airing green, a drying green, so that it smells a little bit fresher. Who knows? Maybe you can look that up and then put it in the chat box next time we meet. There you go. That's something new to think about. And in the meantime, if you want more stories, go to my YouTube channel and listen to some. Now, if you're here already on my YouTube channel listening to this, then congratulations, you found the right place. But for all those people who are watching me live on Twitch, Oh, there it comes. I was wondering why it wasn't giving me the link. All of you people who are watching me live on Twitch, if you want to catch up on some stories that I've done previously, because this will not go to YouTube until 2 weeks after I've actually been live. If you want to catch any of the ones I've read previously, then if you go to my YouTube channel using that link, which you people on Twitch can see, but the people on YouTube can't, go to YouTube, go to my playlists, which is one of the tabs underneath the profile photo at the top, and find a book that you want to listen to. Otherwise, just scroll through the videos that are on that front page and just randomly pick one. But if you want to listen to a whole book, you can choose a playlist and listen to a whole book. You can take your time, you can pause it, you can stop it, whatever, when you want. But each of the books I've read has been saved over there as a playlist. There's a couple of playlists which are slightly different. One of them is the Lewis Carroll one that has Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass are both in one playlist. So I go from one story into the next, one book into the next. And then the Millie Molly Mandy stories are one playlist for all of the stories, because each of the stories is very, very short. They're sort of between 6 minutes and 15 minutes long to read them. And so rather than starting and stopping all the time, it was easier just to put all of those into one playlist, and you can listen to them to your heart's content. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube and feeling like you're missing out because you can't chat in the chat box when I'm live, then have a look around my YouTube profile, which is probably just below where you're watching this video here, where it says my name. Click on it, and then there'll be a tab on one side, and it'll be over on the right for you. It's on that side, just below the picture. There will be a tab or a button that says About, and that, and also the header there, will also have a link to my Twitch channel, which is where you can come and join in, and you can chat with me, and you can lurk to your heart's content. You can be reminded to have your drink of water and your snacks ready while I'm actually saying it, instead of 2 weeks later. Don't miss out. And also, it'd be good to give it a like. Yeah, do that. That's a good one. So we shall see you next time. I look forward to it, and happy reading.